Yeah. Hi, Alice.
Hi. Hi. How are you? Good, good. How are you? Welcome. Yeah, I guess we are waiting for a few more
Yeah.
participants to start.
Hi, Garrett. Or actually, it's Winnie, right?
Yeah, it's Whitney.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi. Welcome.
It's 7 again.
Yeah, people are cheering up
Yeah.
in here.
So where are you guys located? Yeah, I think they have the microphone on mute.
So I'm from New York, but I'm staying in Florida for now.
Oh, okay.
cool.
So they're slowly reopening, right? But from the news, it seems like people are just going out already. So how is it down there?
Um, yeah, people are starting to like go out. Like they've started to reopen restaurants and stuff at like a percent capacity.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but I feel like there's more space here between people, so it could be worse.
Totally.
Hi, Cara.
Hi.
Hi. Welcome.
Is the link up for the inspiration board yet?
I haven't posted yet, but let me share it right now. So this
Okay, cool.
For Cuba, Ojagada, it's very colorful. They have a lot of vintage cars, and I see that a lot of vintage cars are also in like pastel color, which is I love it.
Yeah. Yeah, the great colors for inspiration and all these vintage shapes. I love this kind of like vintage chic, and at the same time, it's a little bit like this mix of rundown and very chic at the same time. This very vivid contrast and very picturesque and very lively and like kind of like bursting with life. And I think colors is all what we need right now. So I would encourage you to look through the board and
So you can look at
get,
the link and find
yeah.
a photo of your choice that inspires you. Hi, Lisa.
Hi, how are you?
Hi, how are you?
Hi.
Welcome. I'll start sharing my screen. So look through the in a second, but meanwhile, look through the mood board and see what maybe not just like a single photo, but maybe it will be detail from one photo combined with a something that sparks inspiration from another photo for you, or the colors, or maybe some detail or an object or the angle. So it could be a combination of a few, because we are trying to kind of like wander around and get the inspiration and then combine in sort of this kind of like cubistic approach when you look at the object from different angles. So in this case, we look at this Havana city center from different angles and try to collect that and assemble it in one composition. So it's kind of like a little bit of deconstruction and reassembling. That's why I'm encouraging you to not just pick one photo and try to recreate exactly the same photo on your canvas, but maybe like try to combine two, for example, or three, and do kind of like a little bit of, think of it as a little bit of a collage. I think that makes it more fun, and gives you more, freedom to experiment. And I will start with quick sketch. Personally, I really like, I don't know, they're so amazing, all these gorgeous colors. Let me start, share my screen. No, this one. So I really like this lady on the balcony. I think she has a very nice, I don't know, kind of like this observant look and mood, and at the same time, this like nice window details and the balcony. So I would take a little bit of my inspiration from here, and I also really like the colors of this beautiful, I believe it's like azalea or something.
I love that one.
Like that, yeah. And I really like the colors here, and the beautiful turquoise blue with this oranges and pinks and pastel. I think it's like really great, and deep emerald green. I think this is like really interesting, nice color scheme to play with. So I would probably go with these colors, and include some figure, character, and a little bit of like this window details in the painting, and like the azalea tree. So it will be kind of like playing with both of them. And while sketching, I'll try to figure out how to arrange them in my composition. I encourage you to kind of like look at the photos and try to break them down into more simple shapes, so the complexity doesn't, overwhelm and take too much time, because we are like sketching on a plein air. Although it's a virtual plein air, it's still like quick sketching, just like trying to put your impressions quickly on the paper, especially on this like sketching phase, and then try to look for the color palette in one of those, and like work within this color palette, kind of like build the limits for your creativity, because it's always easier when you kind of like define these rules, if it's like the rules defining your color palette, for example, or defining that you'll have this like only a few objects in your composition, and then you can really explore within this kind of like rules that you build for yourself. I think it's much more interesting to work with this some sort of limited colors or limited composition structure, rather than you have this unlimited, unknownness, and you don't know where to start, where to go with it. So I'm gonna start sharing my canvas. So I encourage you to probably sketch straight on your canvas. You can use, like, if you have a pencil or color pencil maybe, or just a regular pencil, just like with a few main lines to define where the main elements of the composition will be. And when you look at the photos, just like try to pick at them, try to memorize them mentally, build this mental impression, and then like recreate it here. So with my composition, I really like this azalea flowers. I think I would probably have this like azalea shapes somewhere in this part of my canvas. And I'm very trying to kind of like hit the main basic shapes here. And probably I will want to have this lady on the balcony somewhere on the, like, in the front, sitting here. So I will try to kind of like simplify her body figure into simple geometric shapes, like triangulars and rectangulars or arcs, and not being afraid to, you know, play with the proportions of the figure and exaggerate something and make it more expressive this way. Again, we are like trying to a little bit get the inspiration from Picasso approach here, and he definitely played a lot with proportions and like breaking the face or the figure down into this very simple shapes. But I try to keep the most expressive, in my opinion, lines and general vector of the figure, like where the balance is, to keep it, although it's very like simplistic and broken down, you can still see the pose. So probably she's resting on this very beautiful chair, and I really like this combination of this kind of like vintage chic elements from Art Deco. So I would definitely want to implement this decor elements and like curves in her chair, in the contrast to her very simple shapes of her figure. And I really like this elements of the balcony. I think they're very picturesque and fun to play with, and can create very nice contrast with the simple geometry of her figure. And also, when you're looking at the photos, think of the light and shadow as also could be possible elements for your composition. In my case, probably there will be some, although there is no shadow on the photo, but I imagine there is some very sunlit balcony, and there's definitely some shadow being cast. And in the background, I think I want to include maybe some of this window on the opposite side of the street with some clothes drying. I think it's a fun element to play with, and maybe there is a little other window. And then on top of that, I want to include this beautiful azalea plant. And I think this will be my kind of like approach to mixing the two together, because azalea will kind of like be painted on top of that. And I want to leave a little bit of like room for myself there, where exactly this azalea branches go as I start painting. But overall, I think I want to keep this kind of like center of attention, as if she's probably just looking somewhere and admiring this beautiful flowers, which I kind of like try to define as just like general, you know, masses for the branches. And I will fill it with the colors and play on top to create this kind of like vividness. And I don't want to log this like right now on the sketching phase. I'm trying to keep very like quick and a little bit loose, just so I have something to figure out while I'm starting working with the colors. And for my colors, I really like this orange, turquoise, pink, and emerald. So I think I will, to kind of like, now I have the background and foreground, so I want to separate them to create the depth, although it's quite a flat image. So probably to do that, I will have a very warm background. Will be this orange, pink, and pastel pink for the background. And the front, I will make it cooler, probably keeping within like this light green, turquoise, dark green color, so as if she is a little bit in the shade. And then to create this effect of sunlit maybe part of her face and part of her body will be very almost white to create this very nice contrast what you get on a very sunny sunny day. And also you can work with when you start working with the color, you can approach it in two different ways. So you can start with filling the shapes with color and then add in some lines on top of these shapes, or you can work with maybe like kind of like playing with the contour and lines, defining your main shapes and then filling it with the color. I like to combine both approaches personally, like adding the contour here and there, not defining all the shapes like with this heavy contour, and then some of them I will just like fill with the colors first and then maybe add some outlining on top to amplify or to bring forward to define the shape better. So I think for here probably would be easier for me to start with this front figure, and I'm planning on making her probably more light here.
So I see we have few people here are new. So I just want to briefly mention that you have the option to follow what Yulia is painting, or you have the option to pick any photo that inspires you and just go with the minimal and abstract technique. Anything you want is completely up to you.
Yeah, totally. You can pick different couple different pictures from the mood board and combine the same way I'm like combining these two photos with the flowers and the lady on the balcony here, or you can follow along with me. It's up to you. Just try to kind of like free up your mind a little bit and not to, stick to the photo really precisely. And the photo is kind of like your starting point for your painting. So the goal is not to recreate the photo. The goal is to explore this beautiful location and get inspired by it. But we're not trying to recreate the composition on the photo. We're trying to create something new. And try to not probably, when you look at the photo and choose the elements that inspire you, try to analyze the shapes and break them down to maybe more simple shapes as you sketch them. And then you can always add the complexity of details on top if you feel like somewhere you need for, to add the details, or you're missing something like an important element to a composition to balance it, etc. And also I really encourage you to, there are like so many nice color palettes there on this mood board, so I would really encourage you to choose one of the palettes and kind of like work within it and try to keep within the palette. So in my case, I'm trying to have the very cold and greens, emerald greens and blues for the foreground for my lady in the shadow a little bit, and then this nice orange and pinks for the background. But again, it's like, you're kind of like on the plein air, so it's all about painting quickly and improvising. So it needs to be very not super well planned and strict process. You're playing as you go, but it's nice to have a little bit of like defining rules. Just you set them for yourself, so they kind of like serve you as a little bit of the guide while you're experimenting, and let the creativity and the subconscious flow as you paint. So I would encourage you to do that. And for the figure, I think I want to just, so also can show you. So I will play a little bit with the outlines for the figure, just because her figure is in the foreground, and if I outline and define some of these shapes that I've created, it will bring her towards us, to the front. And that's why here and there I am adding a little bit of outlines. I'm trying to keep my colors solid and local, so not mixing in within the shapes, but also another very fun approach that you can do is making gradients, basically from, for example, from one contrast color to another, or from darker to lighter within the shape. For example, I'm gonna do this on her top of her body shape. So I'll go from probably darker blue to some emerald green within the shape, and like try to create a little bit of transition between the two colors to create this effect of the gradient. And it's nice to fill in some of the shapes with the gradient, because they add a little bit of, you know, interesting complexity to the image, and the others to leave completely solid, maybe with one color or color of, or an outline. And perhaps I'm thinking for my background thing, I've chosen this very vibrant orange, light orange. So I'm gonna fill in my background with this white, like orange color. So I already have this juxtaposition of the two, the foreground and the background, kind of like laying the base. And then on top, I can keep adding on the details as I go. Probably. Also, some of the contours, like here I have this black outlines. I think some of them can be white to create this sunlit effect, but I think there it's better to put them already on top of my filled in colors. It will be just easier to do that. It's very hard to recreate this vivid orange, but I'll try. I guess for the colors, the main thing is their relationship between each other. So it will be contrast in tone and in color, and it definitely will be a big contrast between the turquoise and all these warm oranges. So it will create the effect that I need. So I'll just try to fill in the background with my base color. This is warm. And I'm trying to a little bit add some, since it's a lot of it, so I'm trying to add a little bit of very light variation, but also, you know, it's Havana, so it's all very lively and kind of like want to keep that spirit in the painting. It's almost like very light pink. This pastel color is really pretty. So I'm creating a little bit of this texture here almost for the wall, this orange pastel wall, as if there are like different, you know, nuances of light and probably old paint, old walls. Keep this liveliness. And I'm not really worried about like the contours here for my balcony lines, because later I'll just take much darker color, maybe black or dark blue for the contour. I'll just fill it in. So I'm trying to be quite loose here. I think the main thing for me now is to create this contrast, the foreground and the background, to create this depth and sunny mood. And this contrast in tone will definitely help me to do that. Probably put on some Cuba music. For
Cuban music?
yeah, a little bit for inspiration. I just don't want to turn it too loud, but I think Cuba is a very musical place for sure.
Yeah.
And dancing. So
Have you ever been there?
no, I've always wanted to go. I've heard so much nice stuff.
Yeah, I wanted to go as well. I've actually been thinking about going like a couple years ago, but then, yeah, I just never did.
Yeah. Yeah, I know a lot of my friends went, and everyone was just like blown away how cool it is.
Yeah, I've gone once. It is definitely beautiful.
Awesome.
Is it really as pastel as you see in the photos?
Yeah, I mean, I think sometimes the photos are maybe a little bright. I think it depends on the day, but like you just feel the vibrancy of the culture there. At least from my opinion. I'm also like a salsa dancer, so that was like a big thing for me to just go and just see how everyone's just
Oh, nice.
enjoying life and music.
They probably have the natural like feel for the rhythm and salsa, like the natural plastic, because they see it from like the moment they're born. So really amazing. Yes.
I mean, I see on the news that a lot of the airlines are starting to fly again, but I just don't know how safe that will be.
Yeah, I think for me, I'm gonna hang tight for a bit, see how that works out.
Yeah.
I'm really nervous about the summer.
Yeah. Some people are gonna fly for sure. I mean, they're always
Yeah.
brave people out there. But it's also like you can get stuck on an island.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw something on Netflix, is it, or somewhere, I forgot. And then they were saying how a group of people went to like a festival an island, and then
Oh yeah.
they got stuck on the island.
Oh my
Yeah,
god.
yeah. I saw something. Yeah.
If I wanted to, the people on the cruise ships are still there too.
Yeah.
Scary. I don't think I ever want to go on a cruise.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if you remember, like a couple years back, it was like something malfunctioning with all the cruises, and then now that they're getting stuck, it's just like, you know, I've got nothing that's convincing me to try a cruise ever.
Cruises are really scary. I don't know. They like, especially on this like super ginormous boats. I don't know.
It
It's
is very
like,
scary. I went on a cruise when I was only 21 or something, or maybe younger, with my family. And then it's like there's no like any type of supervision. And then like, you can just go anywhere on the boat. Like I went to like the very front, and it was really dark at night, and there's no one there. Someone can just jump off the boat. I mean, jump off the cruise, and you wouldn't know. And my brother,
wow.
we were like exploring all over because we like kind of all got drunk. So they were like running around. They went all the way down to the kitchen, kind of like Titanic, except it's not Jack and Rose. It's just my two brothers. So they were just like running around, and then they went to the kitchen and stuff like that, and no one stopped them. So.
Wow.
Yeah. Or maybe it's not as like free now than before, but
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So.
are you guys all located in New York? I know
I'm in Chicago.
Oh wow.
I'm in Miami.
I'm in Connecticut, but I work in New York.
Oh wow, we have people all over.
Nice.
Yeah, I'm in Westchester.
Nice. Where in Westchester?
In Mamaroneck?
Oh, you're not that far. I'm in Stamford.
Oh, cool. It's very close by.
So when you lighten your colors, what was the technique you used for the background? Because I'm using kind of like a burnt orange too for my background.
So I basically used a little bit of like a lighter, almost like a dry brush, lighter, almost white, off-white. It's orange. It's like warm yellow and a little bit of ochre and white, and just like touched on top very lightly with this dye brush to create this underlay and like lighter color on top.
Okay.
And to create a little bit of this like painterly, I don't know, texture.
Yeah.
So you just like don't use a lot of water, and like use a little bit of like this dry, keep the brush a little bit dry, and like put lighter color on top of the darker, and it will create this texture effect. Since I have a lot of this color, it's kind of like my background, so I figured it would be nice to have this variation for it. And then for the smaller shapes of the figure, I'll have more consistent, solid colors filling. And then maybe on top I will add some white contour to kind of like create this sunlit highlights as she's lit from like behind. maybe a little bit of gradient. It's nice to have this very light gradient, even like for some of the smaller shapes, especially like your details that you want to bring forward. In this case, like have her. So for the chair, I'm planning to make it this kind of like white chair, which in my case maybe it won't be like pure white. It will be very warm off-white color. We'll see. But I'm trying to fill in the rest and then like lay it out on top in the end. So kind of like keeping paper for now there.
What happened to the music?
What?
I thought you were gonna put on some music.
Oh, yeah, it is played in my headphones actually. Let me put on the. Yeah. It's like it was playing in my head. I was like, oh, that's very nice. I want to dance now. Need some rum here too.
Oh my god, this is good.
Although I have like a white chair for her, I think the shadow can be very contrasting, almost very dark. So for the rest of the balcony, probably we'll have some of them very almost like almost off-white to feel like effect of sunlight contrast, and then the rest probably will be some shades of light turquoise, like emerald green, pastel green maybe. So this is like I'm just feeling almost like it's like almost pure white. Sometimes you want to keep something like almost like pure white, but still it's nice to, especially when you work with acrylics or gouache paints. If it's watercolor, it's a different story. For watercolor, you want to keep your pristine paper untouched for the highlights, but for the paints like texture paints like gouache or acrylic, you want to, even if you want like to have some white, you kind of like want to paint this, have this to cover the paper and like mix in the colors. It will be more organic. Tiny bit of white here, and then the rest will be and again for like some of my my cold foreground blue shadow shapes. I can also use a little bit of this dry brush technique to keep this kind of like feature, unite the foreground with the background in this way. And once I'll have all my colors laid in, I will look at all everything, and maybe here and there I will add some either shadows or lights or darks to kind of like amplify the foreground. Just for now, because I have a lot of blanks up, but and I like when a little bit of like white is kind of like peeking through my dark, because it then immediately creates this vividness and texture and vibrant, more sunlit and alive than just like solid fill. But it's nice to have it like a little bit of that. Somewhere you just want to have very like, chair. And for the chair, probably I want to for the chair to be white, but maybe I'll then later use the darker contour for some of it to bring forward. I'll see.